Hello everybody, it's Max McAllister here with part 2 in our series of how we're making our top plates for the Axxion Rocker. If you are using a wood deck or making your own wood deck at home or wherever you may be on earth where we can't send you lumber or it's too cost prohibitive to send you lumber. A couple of things you're going to need if we're to make a full-length rocker here. You're going to need something with a very square edge. And a handful of small tools, tape measure of course. You'll need a paddle bit, spade bit some people call it, for making your power cord hole. You might have more than one cord that goes through to your trainer. In my case, I have the power cord that goes to my Wahoo kicker, and then I also run a USB extension cord for my Kinetic Ant Plus long range dongle, which I tape directly to the handle of the Wahoo kicker, because that's been the only way we've been able to get a reliable connection, is to put our Ant Plus dongle right on the handle of the trainer. The head of my USB extension cord is about 3/4 of an inch wide, or 19 millimeters, and it just barely fits through that hole. So check what your largest object is that you're going to pass through the hole, and then you'll need to bore a hole at least that large. Most common drill bit sets stop at a 1/2 inch, and particularly since we're working with lumber, this paddle bit is the ideal tool. Costs $3 or $4 at your local building supply. You'll need a pick, something very pointy, to mark the holes where we're going to drill, because we want to mark them extremely precisely. It's very, very important that close is not close enough. When you go to cut the forward lines on your piece of wood, there's in most circular saw boxes, a lot of people don't know what this is, but it's a guide, or a fence they call it. It will slide in to your saw and allow you to cut very straight lines. Next best thing to having a panel saw if you haven't done that. So try and find that fence. If you don't have this fence, you actually can use one of your long scraps of lumber that you can put perfectly on your line and screw it in place on the side, on the waist side where you're going to cut away, and that can be your saw guide. Make sure your saw blade is exposed enough to pass through both, so that you can actually use a piece of lumber if you don't have anything as a saw guide. And so as far as choosing the width for the forward section, that's up to you. The minimum is kind of 12 inches, which is about what our forward rocker rib is. You're going to want to measure between your axles on your bike. And you want to go from the back of your rocker plate and make sure your rib is placed under the front dropouts on your fork. As long as you're approximately close, that's going to be good. I draw these lines and leave them. If you ever want to put a mountain bike on, you might have a different set of holes because it'll have a longer wheelbase. You can just move 2 screws and move your rib forward, or if your wife rides a shorter bike, you can just move the rib, whatever. So keep those lines because they'll be good for the holes where we're going to screw it down. Then as far as design, that's up to you. The cycling desk that a lot of people use, the Wahoo styled cycling desk, that's got 24 inches of inner space. You need some gap between that, so about 20 inches or less would be the maximum I would use if you're using that cycling desk, so you can move it forward and backward and leave room for your rocker to operate. And then if you are a person that likes your desk to come in from the side, you're going to want to make it as narrow as possible so you can get those legs of the desk as close as possible to you. So I would go for the kind of 12 inches there. Now, once you draw the lines of where your width is, figure out the width you want for your center to be, you'll mark it, use this square edge, line it up with the top of your template. You can make perfectly straight and perpendicular lines. And you're not likely going to want to just cut it like that, cut it in a square, because that wouldn't look too stylish. So just find a radius, something round in your house that you like the curve of, lay it on your wood, mark that curve, and you can use a jigsaw to cut that little corner out and make it look pretty. Same thing, up at the top, the leading edge, you can curl the edge with a round object to make it look stylish. And just find, like I said, could be the lid of a paint can or something that suits your whatever looks good to you. So you have some freedom. You're also free to kind of take and make an angle. A lot of boards have an angled or pointed appearance, that's all good too. It's your board. Do whatever you want and put your own touch on it. There's no right and no wrong. Only suggestion again is make sure the rib is under your front fork dropouts. All right, and then cut away. We're gonna drill and mark holes later in another video, and then we can start putting our ribs on and get to rocking.